Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 3rd meeting for the CNAB Registry and Security Specs. We have a few items on the agenda. Mainly the plan Trushank and I had for this was to review one rather significant change in signy, PR number 75. Let me paste the agenda in. So we wanted to review one change in signy, PR number 75, and then just go a final read through the security spec, make sure there's nothing we've missed there before we propose vote for 1.0 next week, specifically to discuss the airgapped section, whether it needs a change in the actual spec text or whether it needs an appendix or an additional file in there, a non-formative that discusses airgapped that can be updated later. And then since we've got Chris, I just added on the agenda 362, the cnab-spec PR, which is the registry draft that's been there for a while. I've seen some people had some comments that I'll address, but the main discussion is whether we want to merge it so we have it in master and people can start update it. So Chris, I assume the signy PR and the changes in the spec will be rather lengthy. Do you want to start with the cnab-spec PR, the registry draft and or the security draft? Do you have a preference?
Up to you. I mean, we can respect the agenda. I can work on stuff in the background if this is completely over my head. I think that's the risk, right? I've got another meeting after this anyway, so either way I'm tied up, so don't worry. Thank you for the offer though.
Okay, given that I assume 75 and the security spec will probably go over and both Trushank and I have a bit of buffer afterwards, I'd rather start with the
That's
one where you can contribite and then
cool. All right, cool. Thanks. Okay, cool. So in terms of looking at the comments, I don't know when Trushank reviewed it. I think it was a while ago, and I remember looking and agreeing with everything that I saw. I think we should just merge this and then iterate on top of it. I think we've got the bones of the work done. It's really just about the last couple of sections that we called out. Now I've got to repage this into my into my memory. I think the major gaps were the annotations, but that's a pretty easy follow-up. And then the air-gapped stuff, which we haven't actually implemented. So I think we're actually in a pretty good space. What is your thinking about it?
Yeah, my suggestion was as well, so that maybe Sylvain and some other people could actually read through. And given that we all agree it's still a draft and we're not proposing that it's final or anything, it's just we want to give it visibility and merge it in master so that anyone can just submit fixes for individual stuff rather than waiting for one particular person to just do the whole work.
Yeah, I'll take 30 minutes to, I just realized I didn't LGTM it or anything because I was in the HackMD, but I should probably just formally say that I'm okay with what there is.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I should have done that. I will. I'm adding something to my calendar now so that I do that tomorrow.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you need from that? Trushank, was there anything else you needed on that PR, or just the things that you put in there?
No, just that. And like Radu mentioned, as long as it's clear that it's a draft, which it's very clear, so that's not a problem. And of course, the visibility is the important thing. Yeah, we need more people to read it. And as soon as it's unmastered, the better. Okay,
I can get Sylvain to take a look, and I'll take a look as well. That way, that's at least 2, and then that should be sufficient to get it merged. Okay, cool. All right. Awesome. Well then, thanks. I'll let you guys get back to the real work, and yeah, keep well and chat soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah. See you.
Cheers.
Okay, should we? I think it's probably easier to discuss 75 first, no? Before the.
Oh yeah, sure. And initially, that's That's how I put it in the agenda. But yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what is there left to do?
The one thing that I realized walking through the PR early this morning was we're not actually injecting the tag correctly in the makefile. So that's why we're not seeing the tag in there's a comment in the Docker test pointing out that you're not able to use the tag variable from the package and we're using latest because it's not injected. But it turns out it's not injected at all. So
if you look at the, what is the script called? There's a script that calls make the live reload script. So it's injected as an environment variable, which we may or may not want to do. I agree that when you go build it, this should be more obvious. When you make, I think you're right that the wrong thing is going to happen.
So the assumption for at least for a Go project that has a make file that has a Go LD flags is that, and there's a tag in there that's gets injected as such, is that it should get injected when I do a make build. At least that's the assumption in most of the projects I worked with, and it seems to be at least an agreed upon.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I came out with this decision. Do we even need this kind of? Because that tag is fixed. Yeah, I'm not sure why I did that.
Yeah.
I can just make it fixed. Just call it latest when you build it, and that we should be fine. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
instead of making it dynamic.
So technically, the way we're using the tags in other projects, and I think Vaughn has a lot of experience in this. He's the one taking care of versions in Brigade as well, and in Porter, and we're actually taking the Git tag, the latest version, and appending if there are no changes to the current state of the repo, we're just taking the latest tag or the latest released version, whichever, it's a tag anyway. And then if there are unreleased, we append -unreleased. So at any point, both the binary version and the image version that we build and we push, they're always versions accordingly. And then I think we also append the first some few characters of the SHA as well.
Okay.
So if the latest tag was 0.4 and there were changes on my branch, the version would end up being signy 0.4 -unreleased-SHA, which is the latest commit on my branch. I think we have a makefile example for this already, and I'll try to dig it out.
Yeah, no, that's good. My only my only concern is that Docker may be doing something else. The Docker push build action might have its own. No, actually, we set the tag, so we fully control it, so that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
I just need to make sure it's consistent. Is all. Okay, but even if we pass the tags here, I'm not convinced that it actually passes to the test because you're not building it the same way.
I think it does. I
think I'll have to test it.
Yeah, I'll test it as well, but I think it does, mainly because it ends up being a variable in the package. That's why it's a public one, so we can inject it from outside when we build.
Mm-hmm.
It should be available. Go, unless you specify otherwise, builds all files at the same time, both the source code files and the test files.
When you go test, you're telling me it builds the binary according to your makefile? Because where's it going to get the tag from? I'm not sure, because when I googled this, I'm pretty sure that you can't inject this build time that's why they're build time variables. Anyway, I have to.
Technically, we could do some stuff on make test. We have a make file for that as well. So
I see.
So we could. I don't think we should get hung up on that necessarily. Sure. I think we.
I was just curious. Yeah.
And now I just realized that we don't actually have a signy version command, and I think what I would do is I would not delay this PR for this and just address it separately altogether, both the make target and the version command itself.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we address it at some point, but I wouldn't delay this PR necessarily anymore.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's that, no?
Yep. Let me
Sweet.
see if there was anything else.
Yeah.
And host disabled screen sharing. Oh, well.
What? Really?
Yeah.
How's that even?
I think it's disabled by default at some point by Zoom because of the security features. And
how did we ever share a screen before this?
No, that's what I'm saying. I think at some point Zoom updated the default settings just to disable everything.
Oh, I see. So someone's got to go and muck with the scheduled meeting.
Yep.
Okay,
and none of us are hosts, so it's fine.
Wow, I didn't know that they did that in the background. Okay, that's good for security, but yeah, okay.
They did the same thing with lobby rooms and all that sort of things. So let me just comment here.
Let me pull up the spec in the meantime. It's been a while. Excuse me.
I could just mute. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'll wait for you.
Yeah, and I think that's about it. I didn't see anything else necessarily. Yeah, the only other question that I had about Signy was whether we want to discuss a 1.0 for Signy to go with the spec. And I think that the change needed for that is the key delegation for in Toto. And I'm not sure how we should approach this, whether I don't know. Do you have a preference for this?
Oh, for what we should designate as 1.0?
Yeah. I'd rather have a 1.0 after we have everything defined in the spec, and I think this is defined in the spec.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. There's no controversy there. That was the next thing I was going to work on after this. And after that would be kind of cleaning up all that in Toto stuff and, like where you put the keys. But once you set up the delegations, we can do that.
So,
yeah, sorry.
So is setting up the actual delegation, let's just pause on the rest of the changes and just talk about the actual delegation. Is that a significant work item?
I don't think so, to be honest. Should be straightforward. But just take a look at the notary code. And last time I looked at it, there's nothing complicated about it. It's just setting it up, making the right calls.
The reason I'm asking is most likely next week during the when we propose the vote for 1.0, the main question is going to be whether the implementation matches the spec and what's the work needed to match, and whether people are going to suggest we wait or not until the implementation matches the spec. That's the only perspective why I'm asking.
Yeah. The only problem is that I'm switching between projects now, and I'm not sure that I have enough time to work on that this week. I can try, but can't guarantee anything.
It doesn't. I don't think we have to have it merged. I think just even a starting draft for that would be extremely helpful. It would be, this is the core of the work. We just have to clean it up and merge it. I doubt people will object necessarily, but just I expect people will bring it up.
Yeah, and I'd much rather test it too. I mean, in theory, it should work. I don't know whether there's any interesting hitches, but the last time we talked to Justin Carmack, it should work. I don't see. There's only one way to find out. Let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do this week. Yeah, let me try.
I'm also happy to pair on that if that helps you in any way this week.
Right. I can. What do you call? I can see how much work in this, and then we can coordinate.
Yeah, and even if we end up just fleshing out a very rough draft and spawning up some more work items that people can pick up at some point, that will be fine as well. Just some direction in here would be extremely helpful.
Right. Exactly. Let me take a look at the node tree code. It should be. It's been a while, but I made some notes, so I'll take a look at that. Okay. Let me make a note to self. All right. Cool. That was a good point. Okay. What else?
So in this case, I can LGTM this last signy PR that we have right now, and we can merge it, and then we can always clean it up if there's anything we find out.
Sure. The you mean the tag stuff and so on? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll open a separate issue for that altogether.
Okay. Yeah, it shouldn't be the hardest thing. Let me take a look at that. I wonder once you merge, it'll try to build the Docker. Oh, that's one way to find out.
Well, it should
be interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to go over the actual spec text?
Yeah, let's do that. We can't even share the screen, so okay, we'll just scroll down manually and go. Okay, so presumably we're both at 300, no?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look. What preamble? By design, this provides security mechanisms that work in airgapped networks. Okay, we need to make sure of that. Okay, we can skip the intro stuff, roadmap. Yeah. So okay. So there's what? There's 4 more pieces to this. 301, 302, 303, 301 metadata repositories. I guess the question then becomes, well, the kind of thing we need to answer is, I don't think metadata repositories directly has got a bearing on airgap, but we're assuming that you can copy it with you.
Well, technically, we're not assuming. Uh, that's the point where I'm not sure as to whether it should be part of the spec or just an appendix or pointing out to a blog post or something where we mention that, well, technically you can't really copy unless you resign it with your own keys, because that's the current limitation. And you kind of have to do the same thing for air gap and for connected scenarios as well.
Yeah, and you can't, it's not just a matter of copying the metadata. You don't even have some of the keys required to renew the metadata.
Yeah.
So
So the concept of preserving the signature, it's actually the concept of preserving the content digest that the original author built. And then, hey, it's the same, right? Even though you resigned it in your registry or environment or whatever. And because there's no concept of that in TUF right now, not in TUF, in Notary v1, we just don't talk about it because it's not there, right? There's nothing to specify in the actual spec text, but for implementers, it might make sense to just point it out in an appendix that if you're distributing it and you want to change the registry, you currently have to resign it.
I'm trying to think if this is strictly true, whether you need to re-sign it. So first of all, hold on. What if we do the naive thing of just caching the metadata at the time you pull the image, right? Because presumably now you want to air gap it. Okay, great. Now you push it, and you got this cache. But I think the signature might fail, right? Because the gun wouldn't match anymore just because of the domain name. Am I right or wrong?
Well, we could not care about the gun specifically. When we pass the verification, we pass the bundle itself. So we care mostly about the information in the bundle, which is the content digest. If it's the same, we could make the choice of not caring where it is coming from, as well, as long as it's, well, you pass the location, right? It's the same with the relocation map.
The relocation map, yeah, exactly. That's what you'd be doing. So that's interesting. We'd have to catch an interesting error from Notary and say, yep, and check it and go like, yep, okay. We know what we're doing here. This is okay.
Well,
if we wanted to go that route.
Technically, we don't even have to do that. So hear me out. So when building the verification process for thick bundles, there's no object in any registry, right? I'm just pushing a gun without corresponding registry entry. Right. As long as I know that there's a gun in my TUF repo with that name, I can make the verification on any file.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You can just totally reproduce the guns and not do it.
What I'm saying is that I just pulled my bundle from Docker Hub, and I know that whoever pushed it originally pushed it to a Harbor Notary registry, and they gave me the location of the publicly available TUF metadata that they signed initially. It was the first person who ever built the bundle. They pushed the metadata to Harbor, to a public Harbor instance.
Okay, under what gun?
Under whatever gun they wanted, right? It's the location where I initially pulled it from, and then I pushed it on my Docker Hub just so I can have it on my registry, right? And I maybe pushed metadata as well, or I didn't. In any case, I just want to make sure that nothing changed in the meantime, or there's some software from company A that they built and pushed metadata in their registry, and then company B comes along and repackages that and pushes it in their registry. And I just want to make sure that the original signature is there. It's right. I wouldn't go so far as to give an example of that, like a use case, because I'm not sure if this is necessarily how people will end up using signatures like this specifically, but it is a way to verify without caring about the name specifically.
Right. I'm trying to take a look at what there may not even actually be guns in there.
Well, technically, when we you have to do a lookup for the actual tough repo in Notary.
Yeah, correct.
And that's made by a name, by a globally unique name. And when we do a thin bundle, when we do a signy sign, we push to the registry, and then we push under the same name to Notary as well. So we don't change the name. We take the same globally unique name from registry and make an entry in tough in the same way that Notary does for Docker.
Yeah, sorry. What I got confused was I'm implicitly adding the ECR domain name, which I shouldn't. It's not there in the metadata, so we don't need to worry about this.
Well, I think we add that as well.
In the signatures in Notary? Because I don't see it.
Well, at least the gun, the signature itself, it does not have any relationship to the name other than information, other than content digest, which, well, changes if you change images in the bundle. Well, changes if you change the bundle. And other than the globally unique name, there are two separate pieces of information, right? I think about it as a map. There's a map with a gun and content digest.
And by
as
a
long
gun,
as I know
you
the
mean...
gun, the value of that map is just the content digest, and I can take that and match it with another globally unique name on.
No, I understand. Just to be clear, by gun, you mean something like, I don't know, Ubuntu /
Well, no, I think about docker.io /
the whole
Ubuntu
thing. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have to identify it in some way.
You do.
In a public registry.
You do. So what happens how does cnab to OCI push work now? So when you copy docker.io, you copy IC and then you change the gun.
Yep. And then we don't actually do anything with signy in cnab to OCI yet.
Yeah. No. I understand. That's fine. So I think for airgapped scenarios, of course, we can't assume too many things, but I think for airgapped scenarios, I think one thing we should at least add to the text now is at least say, look, if you're looking for air gap, maybe in known implementations we should add. I think it's important to add that cnab to OCI, like right now, doesn't do this for you.
Yeah.
But cnab to OCI signy, is it a signy level concern?
Well, it is. And I think what we can add in the actual appendix somewhere is that if you want to verify a thick bundle, if you want to verify the signature of a thick bundle, you need, in an air-gapped environment, there's one step where you actually need the original tough repository where that signature was pushed. And you can, and you can, if you choose to, you can re-sign it in your own infrastructure if you have a Notary instance in your air gap.
Right.
But if you want to verify the original signature, you need to have access to the original Notary instance where that signature was pushed. So you could have something like a DMZ where you actually have access to the internet. You have to pull that thing from somewhere. And if you want to distribute it as a thick bundle and you want to verify the signature first, you need access to whatever that was pushed. So an example would be, I have an air-gapped environment. I pull the bundle from Docker Hub.
Yeah.
I make a thick bundle out of it, and there was a signature pushed into Docker Hub or in somewhere else. Before moving it in my actual air-gapped environment, I check the signature, If it matches, I move it over. I might re-sign it with my own keys, internal keys, and whatnot. And that's the current requirement, right? That you have the original tough repository where that signature was pushed. And I think if we add that, I think it might make a little bit more sense. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I don't think necessarily you even want to use someone else's keys in your own DMZ layer. Yeah, so it makes sense to re-sign, especially because you're probably going to very likely build it as a tick bundle. I don't see why you wouldn't. Just for
unless you have registry instances in your DMZ, you could.
Sure,
right?
Sure, yeah. My assumption is that
use cnab-OCI to copy to actually push to your own internal registry. And if you do that, you can use signy directly and sign it as well, right?
Sure.
So this is probably more of a signy document that we might want to write and point to it from the known implementations. Because the more I think about it, right, this is an implementation detail. And technically, it's a limitation of our current tooling and registries. And the part that's going to change when Node-RED v2 is implemented is not in the spec itself, is in this known implementation and what's the behavior and what you should do.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. Yeah, as long as we document this somewhere, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, and then the question is...
Sorry?
Oh, go ahead.
The problem is, well, not problem necessarily. The issue is that the specification itself explicitly says, what does it say right now? By design, this provides security mechanisms that work in airgapped networks. And this is true. It's just a matter of transferring signatures. Let's see, I was looking, sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. In the introduction, we point out that it offers a way of verifying things in an airgapped environment. And I think there should be a section.
Yeah, and I think we should add something to the spec. I think at least in somewhere, 304, 303, somewhere, we need to add a paragraph or two and talk about what we just said. Because if I'm looking at this independently, I'm trying to implement this independently, it leaves me, doesn't tell me what to do at all. I have to figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea.
And then the question is, would it be signing workflows or verification workflows?
Yeah, this is a good question. I don't think it's in neither. Those are too low level. They don't care, right? We're using them. Sorry?
And the question is, do we want to merge these two? Would it make sense? I don't think so.
Merge signing. No, I don't think so. I think we need another small document, nothing crazy. 3 or 5, I guess. That just talks about airgapped scenarios and what to do.
Yeah.
And that can reuse the signing and verification workflows, right? Those remain unchanged. Those should remain unchanged because that's like the common use case.
Yeah.
Especially verification, nothing changes. Signing, we even talk about in the signing, it's like, it's very general. Let me take a look at signing again just to make sure.
So here's the thing, while you look at that, there's an 805 section, 805-airgap, which technically handles disconnected scenarios. So it says this section is non-normative and describes the disconnected scenario mentioned in introduction to CNAB core. And then it talks about a typical disconnected scenario will have intermittent or no internet access.
Yeah, we should add it there.
I think we should add it here. We should add a section here and point out to it from the security spec. There'll be a link in the introduction or wherever we point out in the security spec when we mention disconnected scenarios. Right. We should point here, and given that this is a non-normative section, and it's actually non-normative what we're talking about, it's an implementation detail because of the current shortcomings, let's call them that. Yeah, let me add a note in
Okay, well, one minute. I just realized that we haven't, as a group, talked about in Notary V2 too. So let me make sure that our design can actually do this.
We're in a recorded call, so I will refrain from any comments.
We're pretty close. We're pretty close. We've got private registries and all under control. In fact, we're gonna run some numbers next. But copying signatures, yeah, I don't think there's anything lethal there. But let me make a note that we don't miss this because no one's brought it up yet. Okay. Let me just make a quick note. You've not been in those meetings in a while, no?
I have, yeah, but in the last couple of, I think the last 2 meetings, I didn't manage to join the meeting. I had some conflicts. So the last meeting I went to was before Memorial Day, when Justin presented the document. And
All right. I wouldn't say it's changed a lot since then. It's changed a bit. We're exploring an interesting alternative to instead of a giant global snapshot, we keep in the Merkle tree. So that'll be interesting.
is that a change in TUF?
It's yeah. Basically now you'll have 2 ways to do snapshots. So it'll be an interesting change. One of the biggest ones we've made. Okay. Yeah.
But regardless, just to close out on that, regardless, once an implementation for Notary V2 is agreed upon, the actual way we would use it in CNAB would still be transparent to a user. I would still do a verify, and then I would perform the TUF / notary workflow to verify that, and it will error out if something changed. As a signy / Porter Duffel Docker app user, I don't have to understand how TUF works to perform a verification or a signing or a signature.
That's taken care of for you. You just call the client underneath, and the client's gonna say, "Oh, I see. Now you're using a Merkle tree. Okay, I'm gonna do that." Yeah. Nothing has changed from that point of view. In fact, Notary V1 will probably never see that ever happen. So you don't need to worry there.
Okay. The other question I have is, in this non-normative 805 section, do we also we have a known implementation for tooling in the spec where we talk about signing, but there's nowhere where we actually discuss compatible services / registries where this is possible. Sure. And I think we probably should add that, and given that it's probably fluid, it could be in the non-normative section that we update. So we would point out that Harbor V2 now has support for this. Docker Hub has support for this. Azure Container Registry has support for this. And
yeah, but why should it be in airgapped?
Right.
It might be in 800 somewhere. 800, maybe 803 repositories. I don't know. Yeah, I think 803 repositories actually looks the best.
Yeah. I was thinking more from a bundle of registry and notary package where I can use both in the same service.
Oh, I see.
Because there's nothing stopping you from using Docker Hub with the Harbor notary. right? You can use
Yeah.
as long as you're authenticated. So
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't think it's 805. I think the best is 304, actually, to be honest.
yeah.
We just add a new heading and say, supported repositories. And at the time of writing, we test it against all of this.
Yeah, I think that would be reasonable. At the time of writing, because that's a normative section, and I'm not sure how suited that information is there. But yeah, I think we can bring it up next week. This is 805, and adding this would be more important. So how do you want to approach adding the section to 805? We could have a HackMD where we flesh something out and we discuss it until Monday or Tuesday next week. And then I would propose by Friday we have a draft PR that comes with our proposal for a vote.
Yeah, I'll send out what do you call? I don't think we even need a HackMD. I'll send out a PR for the proposed tech. Shouldn't be too hard.
Okay, that's even better.
Yeah, right. And then we'll take a look at we'll start that draft PR on adding delegations. I mean, we just need to get the work started.
Yeah. And then having these, I think these are the last two pieces that I would personally want to have at least in a draft before proposing 1.0. And we did the work on the airgapped environment where we actually documented the current behavior. We've been talking about both of these things for a while now in all the public meetings. Right. So I don't think there should be a surprise at all. But yeah, I don't expect many people to actually pay attention to the details of whatever we do. So that's why I always want to.
And to be honest, we should be transparent to them. They really shouldn't care. They're like, look, if you want to do this, just use this tool and don't worry about it. And that's all they care about.
Yeah, and if there's anything that we've discovered, at least on our side in the last couple of months, is that people are looking at this and not necessarily reaching out. So they're expecting to have everything laid out in the spec. And if something is not there, they're like, I expect that piece of information to be here. How should I do it? And it should definitely be there in the repo somewhere. So having that and the draft for delegations should be enough to get people marginally happy with a vote.
Yeah, right. But also, the more I think about all of this, I think what a future tool will need to do is actually combine signing, bundles, and images. It doesn't make sense to use Notary for one and Signy for another one. It only complicates your life and your key management. Right?
Sure, but I think the point Justin made way early when we started a spec text was, if you sign the bundle, technically you sign the content digest for all the images. So you could go by with not signing the individual images. You could if you wanted to, but it's not adding anything new on top of the bundle signature. Other than...
Yeah, but I disagree, because if you don't sign your Docker images, you don't know whether you're getting good stuff in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just saying that having one tool to govern them both, maybe this is something that Notary V2 will do, right? Especially because we're signing arbitrary artifacts. So maybe that'll be, I think the solution will fall out for free, to be honest.
Well, yeah, and technically, the thing we really don't want to is the current behavior where you do a Docker sign for 5 images and you get 5 root keys. That's what we don't want to have in Signy, because you would end up with the signing with a targets key for Signy and 5 other delegations and delegations for all images. And I don't think we want that. At least for V1, we just don't.
Right.
There's nothing, again, I think this is also a point we could make somewhere in a non-normative section, is that there's nothing stopping you from signing your images before building the bundle and have your tooling verify them. So if you're using in a Kubernetes cluster, there's a component that only accepts signed images. And this happens way after you verify the bundle.
Right.
Right, on the actual nodes that pull the images referenced in your bundle. So it doesn't necessarily have to be part of CNAB tooling, but yeah, I agree that Node 3 v2 could improve this significantly.
Yeah, that's the hope. Okay, cool. I think that's it from me. I mean, at least the steps to do next are clear. So
Yeah. We LGTM 75. We've decided where to add the airgapped section. Chris Gunn is going to have a look at the registry spec. So I think we're in a pretty good shape, and with 9 minutes to go. I call this an absolute win.
yeah, it's good. Okay, cool. I will ping you after this. Let me take a
Let's
all
take
of
all the
things.
discussions in the cnab Slack channel so that if other people might want to join the discussion, it's there, and
Sure.
people are aware of whatever it is we're doing.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
This was great. Thanks a lot.
Ciao. You too. Yeah.